The end of year party or the summer party, or maybe just a day trip. Remember these days when you did this with your team and you still do that probably? I addressed this topic because I received a couple of emails, and that's fair. We had a couple of really tough topics in the recent past. So this one is a bit more a light-hearted one. However, we have to see, are events still that important? Because some people raise the question, are they important? We are all sitting online, aren't we? Are we still sitting together? Is this still a thing? So our topic of today is the importance of events, why you need events, but also what you can do wrong, because some companies still do events, but they don't do it very well. They make real beginners' mistakes. So we have to talk about how to do it properly. The importance of events. When we talk about events, of course, most people think about the annual end of year party, and that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing. When we talk about events, we have to talk about absolutely anything. And the first thing you have to choose well is timing. I give you an example of how not to do it. One of my clients said, oh, yeah, they always, during the summer break, they make this annual conference in their organization because hotels are cheaper then. And they usually go to somewhere where it's pretty hot in the US, like Phoenix, Arizona, because it's cheaper there as well. Okay, two things at the same time here. First things first, timing is crucial. When you tell people the best time of the year to have vacation, I forbid you to do vacation because we have a corporate event there. And at the same time, you say, oh, we basically do it somewhere where you wouldn't like to go. These are two beginners' mistakes at the very beginning. So first, timing needs to be right. So look at what's your season when people are not too stressed, but also not so relaxed that they want to take their personal time off. So what is the right timing? Timing is crucial. On top of that, the location is one of the most important things and decisions you have to make when it comes to a proper event. We now, because we also in my industry have annual events, and we have certain annual events, for example, in Hamburg, where we have a large expo, in Stuttgart, which is a bit far further off, somewhere at the airport, already a B location, I'd say. In Cologne, massive A location, very central with a big party next to it. A Munich one, which is a bit far off at the moment, but also the international ones in London or in the US. Some of the event organizers now suddenly shifted. And they suddenly say, oh, we leave New York City. We now go to Lexington, Kentucky. You just kind take a couple of hours flight there, and hotels are also cheaper there, and the event can be sold cheaper. And then they wonder why less people turn up. So here are the news. Less people turn up when the location is not desirable. When someone tells you, do you want to go to a place where you don't want to go to? Your answer, of course, is no. I told you I don't want to go there, so please don't force me to. And then the employer says, well, I do force you to. I mean, at least I pay for it, but also on a cheap level. So timing and location is so crucial. You're sending a dedicated message of appreciation and non-appreciation to your people. And you probably know these phrases when people say, oh, it's all about appreciation. People are everything we have. You are the most important thing we have in this organization. We only care about you. It's all about you. We all have to do this together. Maybe you heard these phrases, and then suddenly you end up in a B or C location in a cheap hotel, and probably, and that was the worst so far, one fitness chain, which probably anyone with you here expected their people to share rooms with work colleagues with whom they have no private connection to. I don't even know where I should get started on how unacceptable this invasion of private sphere is. So the message you send starts with two aspects. What's the timing and what's the location? And don't get me wrong, the location does not necessarily need to be expensive. I give you a very simple example. Let's say an IT leader takes over a really frustrated team, and the frustration comes from a very good point. The leader that led the department before wasn't too great. So you're taking over a team that is not motivated and basically is hanging there thinking of when should I leave this organization? You want to turn things around. And that leader said, look, on day one, when I took this is the new job. Day one, tomorrow, we all go to a go-kart range. We have a good evening out, a good day out. And if anyone wants to stay later, we have some food. However, if someone wants to go to the evening, we have an evening event, but that's not mandatory. So you can leave at 5. If you want to stay later, stay later. And you know what? They all stayed later. And by the way, it didn't cost a fortune. And this leader turned things around. So you see, It doesn't need to be the Monaco private yacht event that you need to pull out there. The situation, however, is that often people today say, oh, yeah, we need events, but shoestring budget, right? Shoestring budget. So, who is going to show up for a really low fee here? And when you go for low fee, here's the hint, you get low results. No invest, no return. Very simple. Leaders should actually know that. It's pretty much your job to do that in your daily business. So the situation really is when you cut costs. When you say we take the B location, the C location, we're cutting the breaks, we're cutting the food, we're cutting the speakers, we expect anyone to either show up for free or whatever else. These events are a harrowing experience. I give you an example where one company started right and then took the wrong turn. They had an event in Monaco and people were hyped about that. However, when they saw, oh, so everyone appearing at your event are exhibitors, so you're selling off every single slot? Mm-hmm. Interesting. And from the hype and pre-registered 1,100 attendees, 254 showed up. So there you are. So if you cut costs, anyone can be reasonable. We need to be we need to be wise with spending our money. There is no question about that. But there are certain market rates. If you go below that, you simply dent the experience. No exception. Because what people really want to have when they go to a conference, they say, yeah, maybe I can learn something. Maybe I can see a couple of people I haven't seen for a while. Maybe I meet some clients. Maybe XYZ. However, they say, please, please let this be a good time. That's the first thing that people actually want to have. They want to have a good time because now, with their friends, with their colleagues, with absolutely anyone in the room, they finally can have some time together, which is purely focused on social connectivity. And by the way, the number one reason why people stay together in an organization is because they say, even if leadership is really bad and the team says we self-organize, we ignore our leader, but we love to work here, people stay together. I give you an example for the social aspect. If I would tell you, what about going to a tech conference? Most people would say, please save me from that. All these nerds and geeks talking about that tech stuff. Yeah, and most events in that space, most expos, most fairs, most events are exactly like that. They're a bit dull, they're a bit stiff. Often the content is pretty good, but the time around that is rather, let's say, debatable. Debatable in its value. And then someone showed up, and that was CloudFest. CLOUD, the technology. CloudFest, the largest event now in that space. So what do? They rent the whole roller coaster park in Rust, which is southwestern Germany. There's the so-called Europa Park, the Europe Park, a massive roller coaster park with an event space next to it. They rent the whole thing, including all the roller coasters, 1 week before that officially opens. And for a whole week, they have their tech events. And they now build such a tribe around that people now make it obligatory in their contract that they say, I only work for your company when you pay for my travel and my hotel and for the conference ticket at CloudFest. That's how you build events. However, when you say, yeah, let's go for a cheap time to a C location and make anyone show up for free, then you shouldn't be surprised that your event is a massive flop, or people only go there to either get drunk, which they shouldn't, to an unreasonable amount, or they simply say, I hang out here because I have to, and then they spend time on their room doing anything but attending the sessions they should. So very important is you need to know how to implement this properly. So when you now think, where do I have to go? And by the way, you do not always have to go to Monaco, New York City, Berlin, London, LA, San Francisco. When you say, let's say you are a company, mid-sized, 50 people, and you are in Milton Keynes in the UK, and you say, hey, we always go to that pub every couple of weeks, so we have our Christmas end of year party there. People probably love that because they say it's totally on brand, it's authentic, it's really you, it's really us, it's an amazing time. So step number one for the implementation always is, what does your target audience, in this case, the team, really want? I give you an example how not to do it. With one of my clients, the boss of a department was a really good cyclist and he loved cycling. So their event was a massive cycling event of more than 60 miles of cycling. And of course, some people tried their best and some people really tried to smile their way along there. But many people simply said, I'm not going to go there. Just because you love cycling to an extreme way, I don't. So the events need to appeal to the people who go there, not to the managers and executives who organize or tell others to organize them. And by the way, always be aware which message you send. When you, for example, oh, I want to have this world famous referee from soccer or football, as we say in Europe, from football having a keynote speech at our event, £25,000 sounds fair. When you spend that money on a, let's say, probably motivational, inspirational 45-minute speech, you can't say no if anyone afterwards asks for a salary raise. People very quickly get when corporate money is spent on personal preference of the management team. So the team are the people who do the work. Focus on what do they want. What is it they like to see? Because as soon as the team is up for it, the organization will massively benefit. One thing you should not do, a certain car manufacturer in Germany in 2009 after the banking crisis, the financial crisis, successfully made an end of year party a self-pay event. They rented a restaurant, better to say they said, restaurant, you give us the spots and we send people there. Well, and less than 10% of the organization showed up after they heard it is self-pay. Just think of which message you sent. By the way, the reasoning for that by management was we have to meet our profit goals. Hear the news. When you are a multi-billion euro car manufacturer in Germany, the yay and woe, the achieve and not achieve moment of your profit goals is not determined by the end of year party. And if so, I really have to question your management and executive skills, to be fair. So for the organization, it's a massive benefit when people say, hey, I'm really motivated after this. I love to work with these people. Even when not everything's great, this event drove me forward. When you have companies that have quarterly events, you often see how like telepolls, when suddenly the line hangs through, the next telepoll, the next event comes up. So be sure that you organize it well because the organization will benefit from great events because you want people in the future to be motivated. However, when everything you send out there, every event you do simply says, I had to do something and I just got the cheapest thing I could ever get there. That will have an impact on your future. You can choose if the future is going to be a motivated, happy, and team-oriented one, or just a little bit of dull, stiff, I have to go there event. If you do it right, as we just discussed it, then you will have tremendous results. And I wish you all the best putting that in your organization. And when you now say, I think I have a couple of questions here. I know this is a very complex space because many people only see this as a side effect of organizations. As someone who's also a professional speaker, I'm now in the event space for decades, and I can tell you I've seen everything from brilliant events to absolutely everything going wrong. So, by the way, if you now watch me on YouTube here, please leave a like here, and of course, you can subscribe to my channel or leave a comment here. I'm always happy to discuss with you. When you now listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you very much in advance for a review, 5 stars, very much appreciated. And of course, you can recommend this channel to your friends, colleagues, online, offline, anywhere you like. We're growing strongly, so thank you very much for keeping this whole thing going. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more content in the future. By the way, as promised, I promised you there will be shorts, not reels on Instagram. We decided to go for YouTube, the so-called YouTube Shorts. When you subscribe to my YouTube channel, please put a little bell in there so you get a bit of a notification when new content is online there. I promised you one leadership day per day every year. We kept the promise, so it will be there in the future as well. The YouTube Shorts, I look forward to seeing you online there as well. And of course, you can also follow me on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So thank you very much for doing so. If you now say, hey, we need very specific kind of help, we need a trainer, a speaker, a coach, a mentor, a consultant, a project and interim manager, very happy to help. Go to my website, nb-networks.biz, so you can see what I do there for a living. And of course, you can also drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. And no worries, I answer every single email within 24 hours or less, meaning if you don't receive an answer within 24 hours, your email probably hasn't reached to me. I give you my social media in a minute as well. Of course, we also have live sessions. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, then you can see live sessions there. By the way, when you put your email address in there, you receive only one email every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content, ad-free guarantee. In the email, you get full access to all the articles, all the podcasts, all the videocasts, all of that with no paywall, nothing. Via other channels, there might be paywalls, not via this one. Full free access. And of course, only via the leadership letter, we communicate date and time and the access link for our live session. We just had a brilliant one last week. Next one's coming up very soon. One per month is guaranteed. And on top of that, of course, you can connect with me on social media. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can, of course, also follow me on Instagram or leave a like on Facebook or subscribe to my YouTube channel. The most important thing, however, is always the last thing that I say. Apply, apply, apply what you learned in this podcast and videocast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive aspects that you obviously want to see in your organization. I wish you all the best doing so. Feel free to get in touch anytime. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And of course, any answer will be provided within 24 hours or less. At the end of this podcast, as well as at the end of this videocast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.